I'm Rich Lieberman. This is the Monday PM Bay Area Media Pulse. We are live on YouTube, but if you are watching not live, but later on, we welcome you to the show and we appreciate your presence here. Please tell your friends and everybody about the Bay Area's only person who discusses media, sports, news, entertainment. Today is somewhat of a controversial topic, but one of the reasons why you come here is for transparency and all that. And I like to think of as my one friend has said many a times, you're kind of like the watchdog. Now, look, I don't want to be sanctimonious and all that. I have a presence here. I do what I think is in the best interest, not just of me, but you, the reader, the listener, the watcher, etc., etc. From time to time, for many, many a times, especially when I was writing, I began to try to figure out why Jon Miller, who is the esteemed Hall of Fame lead play-by-play broadcaster for the Giants, San Francisco Giants, he was taking much time off, unexplained. But it became more prolific. It became a lot more to the point where Miller was, there was no announcement. There was no statement on the behalf of the Giants about, some of the things, why are the reasons why he's now taking a lot of time off. There was no, we didn't hear anything. You, primarily the fans of the Giants and people that are around the Bay Area, did you get any kind of story with regards, Miller's going to work only 100 games or 120 games or whatever? And do you have a right to know that? No. By definition, no. But he is an integral part of the franchise. He's the lead star broadcaster. This guy used to do ESPN. He's done numerous national broadcasts, been with the Giants for over a quarter a century, and has been taking a lot more time. Now, I've heard things, speculation, but Miller has had issues. And I know lots of prominent people, both in and out of the media circle in the Bay Area and beyond, have said to me, yes, there are issues, health issues. Now, a couple of years ago, Dwayne Kuiper wanted to get ahead of this. I'm not using Dwayne Kuiper as a reason why Jon Miller should come out and say something. He doesn't have to say a damn thing. That's his right. But it leads to a lot of speculation about what's going on. And believe me, folks, people are talking about this. Jon Miller may be fine, and I hope to God he is. And I'm not going to say what I've heard because that would be spreading innuendo and speculation in and of itself. But my main point about all of this, which is the biggest point of all, is that because of Miller's role, his prominence, and the fact that he's taken more and more time off, which is fine. He's older. The strenuousness of a Major League Baseball schedule is daunting, is very daunting. It's exhausting. But look at some of the dates that Miller has chosen to take off. I've called it sarcastically, selective exhaustion. Last year, the very beginning of the season, when the Giants went to Mexico City to play the Padres, Miller went on that trip, went to Mexico City, didn't go to Houston, didn't go subsequently to Texas. No big deal on that end. A lot of broadcasters, when they get to a certain stage, they eschew certain locales. Bill King never used to go to Texas, didn't like it. He got older. That's not the point here. So Miller took that off at the beginning of last year. This year, he's taken a lot more time off. He took almost a month off. including, by the way, the Dodger series in June, late June. And that's when the speculation started to become very rampant. It's not Jon Miller's duty to have to go out and say anything. He can keep it private, whatever it is. It may be nothing at all. And Miller can clear all of that up and clear all this speculation up by saying something. Giants too, but they don't say anything. Of course they don't. They leave everybody, including their fans and advertisers and sponsors, people who pay a lot of money, even in this deflated ratings, marginalized ratings that is Major League Baseball these days, radio. These sponsors pay a lot of money to do ads on the radio. And instead of getting the A team, a lot of times they're getting the D team and the E team. And they're not paying top dollar for that. But let's go to an even bigger point, folks. And this is something that many of you agree with me on, many of you don't. I get harangued because this is the point that I've made in all of this. The Giants press corps should be held accountable. Maybe call it out for what it is, a dereliction of duty. The beat reporters, the so-called wonderful, very, very authentic, they say, fine beat reporters like Susan Slusser, give me a break, for the San Francisco Chronicle, Andrew Baggerly, who is a windbag, want to use that? Quote me. Who writes for The Athletic, covers the team, travels to virtually all their games on the road, doesn't say a word, has not asked a question. He could ask Jon Miller, hey, Jon, you don't have to go public with this. If you want to keep it private, that's fine. Ask the question. Susan Slusser, too, who writes for the San Francisco Chronicle. Not a word. The guy, I think his name is Evan Eubanks, I believe. I don't know for sure. Who covers the team for the Bay Area News Group. That's including the San Jose Mercury, East Bay Time. Doesn't ask a question whatsoever. Rampant speculation. Oh, who else? This woman, Maria Guardado, covers the Giants for MLB.com, Major League Baseball. Do we hear anything about this? At least from Maria Guardado of MLB.com, not a word. Marty Lurie, who's not really a reporter, more of kind of like he works for the Giants, actually works for himself, but, does a weekend show on KNBR, not a word. And of course, KNBR, state radio, they're not going to say anything, and they're not going to say even talk about it. Where's Jon Miller? And if Jon Miller came out and said, look, I'm just working less games, okay, fine. Is there still going to be speculation? Of course. That's the world in which we live in. It's part of the internet age. But nobody asks the question. And it's a fair game question. Why did Jon Miller miss nearly a month? And not only that, he missed all that time, including a Dodgers series at home, came back and then was off for the All-Star break like everybody else, came back on the air and missed a weekend series. So in totality, almost a month. In total totality, he's missed several games. If it's part of his new contract, that's fine. But say something. And my point, again, I can never repeat it enough. Do any of these reporters ask the fucking question that needs to be asked? At least ask the question and put it in your notes, or put a side story, a sidebar. Jon Miller has been missing a lot of games this year. The 2024 Giants. Why? Write your story. Miller didn't want to address. Miller was whatever. And there's some of you out there, and some in the malcontent press arena, in San Francisco and beyond the Bay Area. Oh, he deserves a right to privacy. No, folks, doesn't work like that in the world of people who are in the public eye. It's not just, you know, newspaper reporters and celebrities and artists and all that. It includes people even on a local level. And Jon Miller is, whether he likes it or not, he knows this, is part of a public arena. Therefore, some of the things not pleasant, having to deal with whatever, his personal situation, he's like me at the moment. I'm part of the public eye. I'm sure there's a lot of speculation about me, but and I'm not trying to be funny or sarcastic, but I'm open to that. I may not like it, but when you are a public person, the public, whatever, the persona, you lose your right to privacy. It's not a fair game. Sometimes it's not nice, but that's just it. I'm not even a lawyer, and I know this. And you don't have to be a lawyer to know this, but if you didn't know it, you now know it. And what does it do? And I'm not saying, let me repeat, I am not saying that Jon Miller has to come out and say what's going on. It's his right. If he wants to keep it mum, fine. And you, apparently, some of you are okay with it. The question that I have is, okay, where is the goddamn sorry? Where is the press corps for the Giants? Susan Slusser, shame on you. And God, there are other areas I'm not going to go into now where you're like a member of the Booster Club, Slusser. And Baggerly, full of air, a guy that claims to break all these stories. No, he doesn't. Bag air. And ask a freaking question, for God's sakes. If Miller is mum, fine. Miller may say something. Maybe he says, look, I'm at a stage in my career. But folks, the speculation is not that. And again, I want to make it abundantly clear. Jon Miller can say what he wants to say. Apparently, he's fine with all of this taking place. We're in an internet age, and some of it is truly tabloid. But that's the situation we're in. You know, years ago when we had the domain and there wasn't really an internet, we didn't have this. It was a lot more sacred, perhaps a lot more okay. They didn't have to ask questions sometimes. But the way this press corps acts, almost as if they're part of the team, and they get away with it. I want to hold them accountable. This is not something sanctimonious. I'm not trying to be controversial for controversy's sake. I'm telling you something which is it's not a right or a wrong. Is it something legit? You're damn right. It is. And again, Miller can keep it private, keep everything mum and not address anything whatsoever. But on the side, these press people, what a joke. It is their duty, their responsibility to cover not just the team, but the actors, the characters beyond the team, not just the baseball players or the owner or the GM. It's the side people, like the broadcasters. They covered the Kuiper thing, Dwayne Kuiper, and he eventually came out, wanted to address the issue of his health situation. He didn't have to do that. He didn't say exactly what was beguiling him, affecting him, but he put it to bed. He put it to rest. And Kuiper could have kept it private. He could have kept it private. But he did not. And I'm not suggesting, I'm repeating myself ad nauseum, that Miller has to come out and put to rest all this innuendo and rumor. And again, I'll repeat the word speculation. The press corps needs to do its job, but they've chosen not to. And that's an abomination. And that makes them look like the rank less than amateurs than they are. That's not a service to which they are supposed to fulfill. That is irresponsibility, malpractice. And who does the greatest amount of harm is to you, the reader, who follow these guys and who read and look at their coverage, or in this case, lack of coverage, malpractice. Is it a legit question? Yes, folks. Inconveniently, yes, it is, because it's part of the team, in this case, Miller. And I'll tell you this, I've often said this before. Were this taking place in LA, if Vin Scully were alive, think about this. And Scully, now later in his career, obviously, before he died, Scully only worked home games, but there was no issues about his health. Were there? I'm sure the LA Times beat reporter would have inquired, written a story about it, because people would have noticed. Why? Because Vin Scully was Vin Scully. Let's go to New York. Howie Rose, esteemed public, very, very famous broadcaster of the New York Mets, or Keith Hernandez, or Ron Darling in the other side of town, in the Bronx. John Sterling, his health, they wrote about it many a times. There was speculation. He addressed it. He had to retire a couple of weeks into the season because he had health issues. Again, that's not, well, it's only part of the issue. The New York writers would have asked about this. They did with John Sterling many a times. New York Times, The Athletic in New York, New York Post, New York Star Ledger, all of those publications wrote stories. And they inquired about people, not just baseball players or football players or hockey or basketball. I mentioned LA, Chicago. What if Harry Carey, he's been dead now for years, if Harry Carey had, and it had not been written about or not been noted that Harry Carey was going to take a significant amount of time off due to something, there would have been talk. There would have been written inquiries. The press corps that cover the Cubs, they would have asked. And maybe Carey says, none of your damn business. I don't want to talk about it. Okay, that's fine. All legit. But the Chicago press corps would have inquired, would have asked at least, because they have a duty to their readership. Same thing with the Giants. San Francisco, the Bay Area, San Francisco, Oakland, Contra Costa, San Jose, 9-county Bay Area. Not a word from these malcontents, these schmucks. That's right. Quote me. I said it. These idiots. They're part of the team mentality. That's why derisively sports has been referred to as the toy department, because they're not real journalists. It's indicative of the times that we're in. Philadelphia had one of their star broadcasters been AWOL. I'm not saying AWOL per se, absence without leave, but missing, the Philadelphia press corps would have inquired. They would have asked. In the Bay Area, these malcontents get away with it. They don't even ask a question because they don't know how to do their jobs. And they do a disservice to the readership that they allegedly cover. But that's all a bunch of bull. And that's unfortunate. But at least here, where you come to, you will get the story that you deserve to know about. And if you don't want to know about it, that's fine. But they have to ask the question. And sometimes, yes, it's inconvenient. It's not sexy, or it's not very positive. It could be very hurting and damnifying, all that stuff. But it needs to be asked. The press corps for the Giants are a bunch of fakes. They're not even on assignment. Let's coin that little stupid phrase. I'm glad you came here. If you agree or disagree, it's not really the point. At least somebody has the willingness to inquire.